Great. Well, thank you all and welcome to the Control Unit Academy Awareness Webinar on Ocean-Bound Plastic Certification Program. It's great to see a large attendance. I'd like to welcome you all. My name is Robert Diminu. I'm the Vice President of Control Union's North American Business Unit, and I will be moderating this presentation. We have a great lineup of speakers and hopefully provide some information and certainly we can assist you further in terms of questions. Next slide, please. Next, Gabrielle, can you next slide, please? So there are some webinar etiquettes. We would please ask you to make sure you mute yourself during the presentation. Please write any questions you have in the chat box. We will come back to that at the end of the presentations. And please turn off your cameras during the presentation. It allows us to focus in on the speakers. Next slide, please. Next slide, please, Gabby. So as I mentioned, we have a great lineup of speakers. So as I mentioned before, I'm Robert Diminu. We also have Vincent DeCap, the co-founder of Zero Plastic Oceans, Gabriela Santos, who is the program coordinator for the Ocean-Bound Plastic Program, and Barak Eckstein, who's founder and director of TONTOTON. So we will have a great lineup and hopefully will be very informative for you all. Next slide. Seems to be a little bit of delay. We apologize. So a little bit of a update. So Control Unit Academy has a series of webinars and online courses that is offering. So here is a overview. We have an upcoming online course currently, which is in Spanish for those Spanish speakers on the Control Unit Medicinal Cannabis Standard. We also have a webinar at the end of this month on Fair Trade USA's Agricultural Production Standard, so an orientation for producers. An online course, April 7th, in Portuguese on the Recycled Content Claim Standard, version 2.0, and the Organic Content Standard, version 3.0, the Global Recycle Standard, version 4.0, GOTS, the Global Organic Textile Standard, version 6.0, which is an introduction and basic overview of the requirements. On April 8th, we have the Introduction to Environmental Sustainability Certifications. On April 14th, we have the Recycled Claim Standard, version 2.0, and Organic Content Standard, so interpretation of the associated requirements. In April 21st, we have the Global Organic Textile Standard, version 6.0, that will actually be only in Portuguese. And on the 28th, also in Portuguese, the Global Recycle Standard, version 4.0. And then finally, there will be upcoming information on quality parameters of cereals and oilseeds, which will be both in English and Russian Ukrainian. And you can find more information here at the website www.academy.controlling.com. So a little bit about Control Union. Control Union is a global organization. It completed its 100th anniversary last year. It resides in more than 70 countries around the globe and has more than 5,000 employees globally. What type of services do we offer? Basically, we operate in the entire supply chain, offering verification, capacity building, program development, certifications, which we'll talk about today, and traceability programs. Everything from where raw material is sourced, transportation, logistics, port operations, any processing, manufacturing, the chain of custody through trade organizations, distribution, and finally retail and end consumer facing public claims. Next slide, please. So the agenda today with the speakers, we will have the overview of the OBP certification program, where We'll talk about ocean-bound plastic and what is and is not ocean-bound plastic. We have the categories and definitions of OBP, a program overview, which is the certification one for you, so for those that are looking at it for the first time, and then a little bit about the ocean-bound plastic versus the GRS, which are two programs that are very, the GRS program is quite in the market. A tool we have called the OBP App, and then we have a great presentation by TONTOTON on their experiences. So first up, we have Vincent Decap. Vincent has a master's degree in chemistry and environmental services from ENSCR in France and a master of business administration for CNAM in Paris. Vincent has more than 20 years of experience in the water and solid waste management industry. He has held various business development and managerial roles with leading industry players such as GE Water and currently working as commercial director for Suez. Vincent is also actively involved in the protection of oceans from plastic pollution, collaborating with the Race for Water in the field of plastic to energy solutions, and being co-founder of Zero Plastic Oceans, the NGO that has developed the ocean-bound plastic certification program aimed at incentivizing the collection of this plastic waste before it reaches the oceans. So Vincent, welcome.
Thank you, Robert, for the introduction. So you can see a little agenda here that's built around explaining you why we created that ocean-bound plastic certification program, first of all. Then we'll go a little bit more into detail of how we define ocean-bound plastic. And finally, give you a brief overview of what is ocean-bound plastic. On the next slide, you can see some images when they come up, because I understand the delay is a bit slow, of what's happening with plastic pollution. Plastic pollution has now a visible face. The visible face of plastic pollution is plastic in the oceans. At the same time, this is a big environmental issue, and it's a big image issue for the industry, but it is a very small portion of the overall plastic production. You can know that in the next slide, Gabriela, I don't know if you launched that already. The global plastic production is about 400 million tons, and the plastic that we estimate is going into the ocean, it is around 12 million tons, 10 million tons. The exact numbers are very hard to define, but we are looking at a problem which probably is in the 3% range of an industry, and it is causing a massive damage to the image of that industry. What we noted in our work with trying to protect the ocean in various organizations, I and the other co-founder of Zero Plastic Ocean, is that there was actually a lack of focus on a particular problem. And that particular problem, as we can see on the next slide, is ocean-bound plastic. Why ocean-bound plastic? Well, it's fairly simple to understand. Plastic is in the ocean because before it hasn't been collected, or it is abandoned next to a river, next to a shore, where it is at risk of going into the ocean. And that plastic leaves the shore, leaves the land activity. We know that 80% of the plastic in the ocean is more or less coming from land. So this plastic previously was ocean-bound plastic. If we focus on making sure that this ocean-bound plastic is collected, we are able to prevent it from going into the ocean, and therefore we are able to prevent it from making this environmental damage and this image damage to the product itself. So we believe that there was an opportunity for the industry to focus on ocean-bound plastic, and this is the reason why this certification was developed. It was not really developed as a certification to certify something, but really as a tool where an industry player can decide, okay, I want to focus on ocean-bound plastic, so I'm going to use this certification to ensure that my suppliers are compliant and are really going to look for ocean-bound plastic. Okay, maybe you can pass the next slide and the following, Gabriela, directly, because this is the explanation of why we started to develop this program. And of course, we collaborated with Control Union. So Zero Plastic Ocean is the standard setter. We are the owner of the program. But in the initial phases, we went to Control Union to help us define the program, to make it a better program that could be used internationally and could be spread. So we had some experience in the certification industry, but we're not experts like Control Union, and that's why the reason this collaboration was created between Zero Plastic Ocean and Control Union to release that standard. The first job that we had to do was actually to define what is ocean-bound plastic, because it's a name that everybody knows. It's a name that everybody confuses with ocean plastic. Maybe not everybody, most people actually do. So first defining, let's say, what ocean-bound plastic is not. And we can start by saying that ocean-bound plastic is not ocean plastic. I think you've understood that already from the introduction. Ocean plastic is what is already in the water. We could say it's too late. The damage is already done. Whether ocean-bound plastic is what we can easily capture before it goes into the water. Here, there's something important, is why do we focus on ocean-bound plastic and not on ocean plastic? Well, it's quite simple. You know, it's this closing the tap metaphor, which has been used by many. If the flow of plastic is continuously going to the ocean, cleaning the ocean is going to be a very hard job. On top of that, cleaning the ocean is very expensive. You need specific tools. And it's very inefficient because a lot of the plastic actually goes underwater. It's not floating anymore, and therefore you cannot capture it. That's why we thought it is a lot more efficient in terms of money spent and a lot more logical to actually work on ocean-bound plastic rather than ocean plastic. Now, how do we define a little bit further ocean plastic? On next slide, you will see the categories that we have defined. So the definition of ocean-bound plastics, are of two types. The first one is where it is located. So for the where it is located, we have in the program 3 different types of location. The first one is a rather generic category, and this is the one that the industry most commonly use for ocean-bound plastic, which is mismanaged waste within 50 kilometers from the coast. It's a pretty wide category. And this definition has come up from the work of Jenna Jembeck, which is the famous publication that has defined how much plastic was going from land into the ocean between the 4 to 12 million tons. That the number comes from that publication, and that publication looked at mismanaged plastic within 50 kilometers from shore, and that has given indirectly the definition of ocean-bound plastic. Then, as I explained in the introduction, we wanted this to be a tool for the industry to be able to focus. So we also have 2 categories, which definitely will give you the opportunity to focus more precisely on ocean-bound plastic, which is the shoreline category. More or less, you could call that beach plastic. That's 200 meters from the highest tide on limit and 100 meters from the lowest tide limit. So a 300, 400, maybe 500 meter bandwidth along the shoreline. So very close to the shorelines. And the similar category, which is waterways, where we are on each banks of a river, 200 meters on each banks. So we capture plastic that is really at risk of going into the river. And of course, all the plastic that some mechanism can catch inside the river itself. So that's the two specific definitions that you can find. Now we will see on next slide the second part of the definition of ocean-bound plastic, which is mismanagement. And mismanagement is very important because if you go for the wider category of 50 kilometers, nearly half of the plastic of the humanity is within this 50 kilometers because roughly half of the human population lives within that 50 kilometer bandwidth. So it is very important, and that's a role that the auditor take very seriously, is to verify that where the plastic is being collected is properly mismanaged. And you can see on the left side, obvious example of mismanagement, where either we don't have any waste management, either we have a waste management, but it is very deficient. So when it rains, when the wind is coming, definitely this plastic is at risk of going into the ocean. Whether on the other side, we have a formal waste collection, waste management, sorting center, proper landfilling, and all of that, where the risk of that plastic going into the ocean is extremely low. Doesn't mean that it is zero, but it's too low for us to allow people to go and collect ocean-bound plastic in these areas and certify it as ocean-bound plastic. So that's for the easy cases. On the next slide, we have some cases which are a little bit touchy and quite interesting to see as distinctions. The case that is most commonly disputed is managed dump sites. Of course, dump sites are not a correct way to manage waste. We know that. So they could be considered as mismanaged. In our standard, they are excluded. They are excluded not on the basis that it is proper management, but on the basis that if the plastic is in a managed dump site, it means it has been collected already from the streets and it has been taken to the dump site. Therefore, that plastic is not at risk of going into the ocean, which is our focus. We focus only on preventing that the plastic goes to the ocean. There are people who focus on, for example, making sure that this plastic would be recycled, and that's perfect. That could be another standard, but that could not be under the OBP standard. However, the same managed dump site could be next to a river, or could be next to a shore. In that case, we are going to allow, because there is an obvious leakage of plastic into the water bodies, then we are going to allow collection in that managed dump sites. Then we have a third definition of in the standard of dump site, which is informal dump sites, where they are not managed at all. And in that case, yes, it is considered as plastic abandoned in the environment, and it is allowed to go and pick up plastic in these informal dump sites, which are normally a lot smaller. Then we also included prevention mechanism. Why? Just because under the logic that we don't need somebody to intentionally go and throw plastic next to the river or in the street to call it ocean-bound plastic. So if you are developing a house collection program, for example, or recycling points in an area that corresponded to the picture that we showed on the previous slide, where you could see mismanagement. So in these areas, this type of prevention system are going to be accepted. Similarly, the fishing industry can have a tendency to lose at sea some old nets or buoys or things if, when they have to bring it to the shore, they have to pay to dispose it, or they have no incentive, nobody is buying the nets for them, for example. So they see no reason why to make the extra effort to bring that back on the shore. So for the same reason, to prevent that to become ocean plastic, we also accept these recycling industry schemes as long as they provide an incentive for the fishermen to bring back the waste to the port. Now we are going to look at the program scope. So everything that is included in our program and the different things that you can do with the OBP certification program. And based on that, we're going to give you an example. This is a real picture from the beach exactly next to my house. And I live in Panama. In Panama, we have a little recycling infrastructure. So the first thing that I could go to that beach and I could collect what I could sell in the recycling market. That would be a sale for export. And that would be very little. That's the difference between the picture on the left and the picture in the center, where you can see that globally I have removed very little. But however, that plastic I could send to recyclers, and that is certified. So we will certify the collection, and then we will certify the recycling until the final product, so that along the value chain of recycling, people can make claims, certified claims of the OBP recycled content. For example, this is 100% recycled OBP PET Flex. That could be a claim of a recycler, or end user claim could be this bottle is made of 50% recycled OBP Flex, for example. Of course, we cannot be satisfied if where we get to is the picture in the middle, because globally, visually speaking, environmentally speaking, we have not done a great job. So we completed the program with a second option for organization to be able to go and collect the rest of the plastic and use the plastic crediting mechanism. So we call it ocean-bound plastic neutrality model, where you emit credits for the work that you do of removing that plastic and treating it, so that other companies who are offsetting a plastic footprint can make OBP neutral product claims. And we will see an example of that at the end of the presentation by TONTOTON, which is an organization that is doing just this. Okay, now we are going to see the first value chain with a little bit more detail, which is the OBP recycling sub-program. So that program, the slide is coming up soon, I think, is composed of two standards. Why two standards and not one standard? Because definitely the collection activity and the recycling and end user product sales are definitely different activities. So we focus on different things. For the collection standard, we are going to focus on where you collect the plastic, how you collect it, how the people who are working in the collection are treated by the organization. Well, we are going to focus really on these aspects. There could be some basic preparation step of the plastic for its further recycling. And then it is sold to a recycler that will apply to the recycling standard. That's fairly logical. But the recycling standard also goes all the way until the final product, including traders along the way. So it's more a chain of custody standard where we follow the traceability, and of course that the social environmental standards are also respected along the chain. The second sub-program is the one that we mentioned that used the neutrality model. It is also composed of two standards, more or less for the same reason, which is very different requirements for both types of users. So first of all, the OBP neutralization service provider standard, that's for the organization who are going to collect the ocean-bound plastic, that eventually are going to do some sorting to it, and then are going to send it to a waste treatment facility because that plastic is not recyclable. It could be also sent to upcycling. The difference, no, sorry, can you get back? The difference between the two programs is whether you can sell that plastic and they will pay you a significant price in the recycling market or not. If you have to give it to some programs that will do, for example, upcyclings or things like that, that's also okay. You can use the neutrality sub-program. So once you have collected and treated that plastic, you are able to emit a neutralization certificate, which is going to be verified by control union and registered by us before you can actually send it to your client. So it's a verified credit. This is the equivalent of what we will call an OBP credit. And that credit is purchased by an organization that wants to offset. So typically somebody is using to make shoes 100 tons of plastic, and they are going to buy 100 ton equivalent of credit, and then they are going to be able to label these shoes as being an OBP neutral shoe. All right, and I will finish with one last slide, which is the key requirements of the program, just to give you an overview. So I have mentioned it briefly, but the program is quite comprehensive because you also have social and ethical standards which are verified, and that is a very important part of the verification, and that applies for everybody in the supply chain, every standard. We have an environmental requirement which is focusing on waste management. So we obviously want to make sure that nobody in this value chain is actually sending back plastic to be ocean-bound plastic. That's our key preoccupation. And then we have specific standards, like I explained, for each standards, depending which subprogram they are, and they are logical, I would say, requirement depending on the characteristic. And now I'll hand over to you, Robert, and thank you for your attention.
Great. Thank you, Vincent. Appreciate that great presentation. And just as a reminder to everyone, please, for your questions, place them in the chat, and we will address those questions at the end. Our next speaker is Gabriela Santos. Gabriela has been with Control Union for 2 years. She graduated from the University of Sao Paulo with a Bachelor of Science in Sustainable Value Chains, and is the responsible person for our ocean-bound plastic program within Control Union. So with that, welcome, Gabriela.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I won't turn my camera on because apparently there is some delays. I hope my internet does not break as well. Thank you, Robert, for the introduction, and thank you, Vincent, for the detailed information about OBP. With 4 standards, you might have wondering which certification is the one for you. If you are a textile organization, you might be wondering, okay, what is the difference between OBP and GRS? I'm going to explain a little bit about the OBP app, which was developed by Orca Geoservices, and their certification process itself, how to get your company certified. So which certification is the one for you? We have 2 different sub-programs with 4 different standards overall. So how would you know which certification is the one for you? So basically, for the recycling sub-program, if your organization collects recyclable OBP to sell it, if your organization has its own team and does cleanups operation, if your organization buys OBP to independent collectors, which can be understood as street pickers, or if the organization buys from small enterprises doing collection, or even if your organization buys and prepares OBP for sale and transport, but does not transform it, so you can apply for collection organization standard. On the other hand, if your organization trades certified OBP, if your organization transforms, prepared, or raw certified OBP into intermediate products, if your organization produces new products or packaging from OBP or intermediate products, and if your organization uses packaging made of recyclable OBP and does its own labeling, you can apply for recycling organization standard. You might question, okay, my organization collects and recycle. Can we apply for both standards? Yes, you can apply for both standards. As Vincent mentioned, OBP is a chain of custody certification program. So for you to get certified as a recycling organization standard, if you don't have the collection made by your own organization and you buy from external parties, these external parties shall be also certified first in order for you to get, to be eligible to get certified as well. And then going to the neutrality sub-program, where we have 2 different standards again. The neutralization services provider standard is, again, another type of collection standard, but for non-commercial recyclable OBP. So the neutralization services provider standard is applicable for those organizations that collect non-commercial recyclable OBP to sell it, for those organizations that has its own team and does cleanups operation, if the organization buys OBP to independent collectors or small enterprises doing the collection, and if the organization treats or contracts the treatment of non-recyclable OBP in an environmentally accepted way, which can be a valorization or
I think we might be having a little bit of technical difficulty.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Gabriela. We can hear you now.
Oh, okay, great. Yes, you can apply for both standards collection and neutralization as long as you are collecting both recyclable and non-commercial recyclable OBP. If you are a larger organization that also does recycling, you collect recyclable and non-commercial recyclable and also recycles the material that you collected, can you apply for the 3 standards: collection, recycling, and neutralization services? Yes, you can, as long as, again, all your activities falls under those standards, under those requirements. And for plastic producers and users standards, it's for any organization that produces products made of plastic. The organization uses plastic packaging to sell its products. The organization wants to offset its plastic consumption by having non-recyclable OBP removed from the environment. And the organization wants to declare some of its products as OBP neutral. So, for instance, you are a textile organization and you use conventional polyester and you want to offset, the plastic being used in your textile products. Can you apply for plastic producers and users? Yes, you can. You are a company producing plastic bottles for drinking water. Can you apply for plastic producers?
I think we are again having some technical difficulties.
You can.
Yeah, we lost you there for
and then for
please proceed.
Okay. For the questions regarding OBP and GRS, your company is already certified as GRS. What is the difference with OBP? So basically, what do you want to communicate? So the GRS is a full product standard that sets requirements for third-party certification of recycled content, chain of custody, social and environmental practice, and chemical restrictions. And OBP was designed to encourage the removal of OBP from the environment by adding value and effectively collecting and treating it before it reaches oceans. So these 2 programs are indeed similar. They do not exclude each other. They complement each other, so can be certified in both and make your claim even stronger. The main difference between them: GRS is for recyclable materials, so it can come from the ocean for ocean-bound areas or any other areas or any other materials, recyclable material as a whole. OBP is for plastics coming from ocean-bound areas. It's specific for plastics from ocean-bound areas. The supply chain step: GRS is mainly downstream. Meanwhile, OBP is upstream from the collection to the recycling and end consumer, and also has a neutralization module for it. And GRS is only downstream and recyclable side of it. And the both of them are very similar. So both of them have requirements for environmental, social, and chain of custody. Both of them are very strict in these requirements. The main difference between OBP and GRS is the chemical restrictions that GRS has and OBP doesn't. But again, it's what your organization wants to claim, wants to communicate for your buyers. These 2 certifications do not exclude each other. They make your claim even stronger when they are together. And the OBP app was developed by Orca Geoservices. Orca Geoservices is a member of the Global Control Union Network, and they provide technology solutions. So they came up with an OBP app for collection organizations mainly, because we know they struggle that might, the collection organizations might have when controlling, when keeping tracking the collection services. So the OBP app, the organization can set up zones, can take pictures, put the quantity, the locations, GPS locations. The project managers have access. It's like a cloud, so all the information goes to a cloud where project managers have access, and they can supervise planning and do report with all this data. The collectors will have an app on their smartphone where they can, take pictures, put the GPS location, the quantity they collected. So the project managers will have this information much quicker and faster, let's say. So what you can do with this app, it's basically you can monitor and document collection activities, so quantities, before and after pictures, GPS locations, prove compliance to OBP requirements, because as Vincent mentioned previously, there's 3 OBP categories. For shoreline and waterways, these requirements are even stricter. So with the OBP app, you can show easily to the auditor or any other party that would like this information, the exact location where the material, the plastic, was collected from. And of course, you can plan new operations. So you can set up cleanup teams, you can push notifications, and you can basically plan any operation that your organization might want. Of course, each organization has their own scope, their own region, zone. So the preparation of the app, it's for your organization and your scope. So it's kind of a customized app for your organization. And the app itself include a daily collection recording module, an app, a web administration for monitoring and management to access the data. So if you would like to have more information about the OBP app, I kindly ask you to send an email to orca at
Gabriel, I think we also lost your sound again.
Hello?
Yes, Sal, we have you back. Great.
Okay. I am sorry. So just shoot them an email for more information and what they can provide to you regarding OBP app. And for the certification process, OBP is a very straightforward process. We say that it can take up to 8 weeks for your organization be awarded the certificate. Of course, this number is an estimation, and it may vary according to auditor's schedule, no compliance, if the payment conditions agreed previously are in place and everything. But basically speaking, it has these 7 steps. The first one is application submission. So we kindly ask you, if you are interested in applying for OBP, to send an email to oceanbp@controlunion.com. We will send you the application form. This form has all the information necessary to build a quotation for your organization. Once this application is submitted with the right information, Control Union will build a quotation offer and contract, and we will send it to you for your organization to review and approve. If it is agreed, your organization sign and date this offer, and then we have a contract. After that we have a contract, we will schedule the audit, we will set a date, your organization will be informed about the date and time, we will send an audit plan so you can plan yourself as well, separate all documentation needed. So documentation preparation is really when you prepare for the audit. Then the audit day comes, there is an audit, the auditor go there, review all documentation necessary, do a site inspection, and the auditor also has, after the audit day, the auditor has a time to, of course, write the report, stating all the positive findings and negative findings, if there is any. This report is also sent to your organization for signature. If by any chance your organization has any non-compliance, there will be a time when your organization can provide evidence to close this non-conformity. But again, it's only if raised during the audit. It's not a step that all organizations have. It depends on the organization, how prepared they are for the audit. And then after the closure of non-compliances, if there is any, we will award a scope certificate. So it's a very straightforward, again, it depends, this number of weeks depends on the auditor's schedule, NECs, how much long, it gets to accept the offer and everything. But yeah, that's the certification process. And I give you the word to Robert again.
Great,
thank you.
Yeah, appreciate that great presentation. And yeah, we unfortunately in today's world, technology doesn't always work. So, but I'm glad we were able to finish the presentation. Our next speaker is Barak Eckstein. Sorry about that, Barak Eckstein. He is leading environmental projects and initiatives for more than 15 years. In 2007, he co-founded a leading reusable packaging company that specializes in recycled and eco-friendly materials. In 2019, after the increasing demand for even more sustainable products, he founded TONTOTON, a certified plastic neutralization program, which helps companies reduce their plastic footprint and prevent ocean pollution. With that, welcome, Barak.
Thank you very much, Robert. Nice to meet you, everyone, and thank you for joining. And so we start with the introduction of TONTOTON. It's tone to tone, basically. It's on the name of back to back. The project started almost 2 years ago, and right now we are on the field already working and collecting. Next slide. So in this presentation, we will tell a little bit what our key founders, what we are doing, what our key pillars, and where we are collecting, how we are doing it. Plastic neutralization, it's a solution, like said before, for the non-value plastic, basically the one that cannot be recycled. This plastic, if it go to the ocean, so basically it becomes a problem of all of us. So we work in Vietnam at the moment. Vietnam is the 4th largest contributor to marine litter. So it's a big problem, and a lot of plastic and a lot of pollution coming from here. Vietnam is a country with very long beaches, around 3,500 kilometers of beaches and thousands of rivers. And the population, the system cannot handle the amount of plastic that's creating. So there is a lot of work to do in Vietnam. That's why companies that collaborate with this program basically help to prevent a lot of plastic that might be get to the ocean. Next slide. So how it works in brief, we defined a neutralization plan with the client. If it's related to general consumption that they want to benefit and credit to their operation, or specifically to specific product, it's up to the client, and based on this plan, we will basically collect together with waste pickers ocean-bound plastic for waste management areas by the certificate as a protocol defined, and transfer it to co-processing, use it as energy and raw materials, which I'll explain more about later, and eventually all this process will be certified by control union by the protocol. Next slide. Next slide, please, Gabriel.
It's going.
Yeah, it's slowly. Okay. So where we are working, our first locations are in South Vietnam, in the islands. The islands have a very big problem. All the plastic that goes into the island will not go out back to the mainland. There is no suitable solutions for plastic waste and waste in general on the islands. The only solution is to pile it in unofficial landfills and burn it, even not in a segregation plan, just open burn. What we are doing there is collecting from places that cannot handle the plastic and removing by trucks and by ferries back to the factory to process. This is two of the places that we are working. Phu Quoc is one of the biggest island, I think the biggest island in Vietnam, with a lot of tourism. Pre-COVID, around 3 million people visiting there. So basically the island is choking and drowning in plastic, and we managed to remove a significant amount from there. Next slide. About the 4 pillars that we are working with. So the first one will be the non-recyclable post-consumer plastic waste. We are not focusing on industrial waste. So it's just the post-consumer. We call it orphan plastic. This is the term that we found it most suitable for this kind of plastics. Basically because nobody is collecting and there is no market for this plastic. In this picture, you can see the non-recyclable orphan plastics on the beach, and on the right side, it will be all the value plastic that people do collect, plastic traders. And every location, like explained before, is audited by control union. And next slide. I think we jumped a few slides up. You can come back to slide. Yeah. One after. Okay. Anyway, the second pillar. So it's missing. The second pillar of the program will be the community. We collaborate with waste pickers on a daily basis. We usually don't do cleaning days. We believe it's good to collect anything, but we do a collaboration with waste pickers on a daily basis. We support them with PPE and better income and study income. They know we sign a contract with them, and they know that they have a study income for the next 6 months or 1 year. It depends on the project that we are getting from our clients. We're also supporting them health insurance, and most of them don't have it, so we just go with them and do it. So there is a big environmental and social aspect to the project. The solution, like we said, it's co-processing. It's verified by the Basel Convention for Waste Treatment. Basically, it's reducing CO2 emissions because factory is using plastic waste instead of coal. And finalize, the fourth pillar will be the certified and audited solution. What we are doing, we basically, when we talk about plastic neutralization, we talk about environmental and social impact that implement into the product, into the company, and into the brand. So this is what's standing behind this wall of plastic neutralization. Like said before, also the recycled material, it's very good. We also produce other materials from recycled material, but the big problem is the non-recyclables, the one that nobody collects, and this is the majority of plastic ocean. There is some leakage of recyclable, but PET are very expensive and they're very high value in the market. Everyone collecting them. The single-use plastic is the problem. The capacity is very big, so for 70 tons that we collect, it comes up to 12 full trucks that removes from poor waste management areas. It's come back, but we already passed. You can go 4 slides forward. So the win-win-win, so the second win will be all the stakeholders that enjoying and working with us. Waste pickers, most of them women that we are supporting with everything that I said before, PPE and health insurance, and better income and study income. Sometimes we manage to double or triple their income, which is a significant help for them. And the third win, the last one, next slide, will be the company, the supporter. Go forward. The company, the supporter that actually can use the plastic neutralization into their product, into their marketing, and enjoy this benefit of better reputation, increase sales, or just helping their client to connect better to what they are doing, sharing the same values as their consumers. So it's very important that everyone in our mind and how we see it, that everyone in the program will benefit from this activity. Otherwise, it will not be sustainable. You can go forward. Yeah, so this is the third win that we just talked about. Anyone that collaborates after certified can label his product as a plastic neutral product, or collaborate and add this process into his CSR reports. Next slide. So just to understand more clearly how it works, so we will weight the product that we want to neutralize, and we will collect the equal weight of ocean-borne plastic and rescue it from the environment and take it out of the ecosystem completely. Next slide. This is an example of how to mark a product as a plastic neutralization with this label. And next slide. So this is some of the organizations that we are working right now, and some more that we didn't mention here. Most of them NGOs that help us to get to the right places, to the problematic, the polluted places, and collaborate better with the waste pickers, with their needs and whatever we can support them. And thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate that, Barak. Great presentation. Sorry, I think we had a little bit out of order, but I think it was a good presentation. I think it was very clear. So as I mentioned, we do have some time for questions. I do see questions coming in on the chat, so maybe I can kind of direct those to the speakers. One question is, what is the distance criteria for the dump site from the shoreline? Maybe that's better addressed to you, Vincent.
Yes, definitely. So we did not put a distance criteria because it's highly dependent on the topography of the site. What we will require is that it is visually evident for the auditor what it is going to the site, that he can see that there is the plastic going into the ocean for the dump site. Putting a distance criteria could be very misleading if some places, some dump site is on top of a cliff or a mountain far from the sea, but still it's falling over and rolling down the mountains and things like that. So that's what we will use for the moment.
Yeah, and I think the other thing I think would be that when companies are obviously engaging in those questions, that kind of comes out in the process of the application, right? So where they would be explaining to control union essentially, you know, where they are sourcing, what is the distance, and that would have to be more or less checked. So there's no set criteria, but it would be further explained in the application process. Correct? Next question is, I think this is also for you, Vincent. Can you purchase neutralization credits if you are not using recycled material?
Yes, definitely. That would even be the most logical option to do. You use virgin plastic, you want to compensate that, so you purchase the credit, and then you have a product where you take out from the environment what you are putting in the market, and then that's where your neutrality comes from.
Okay, great. Next question, I think actually I could probably address is, are you verifying against SDGs too? Sorry, the first question, two parts to it. Are you verifying against SDGs? And is Control Union an accredited certification body for any of the certification programs they offer? So maybe for the, and then actually, sorry, three-part question. Well, the first part maybe for you, Vincent, are you verifying against SDGs too?
We are currently not doing that.
And regarding the question for Control Union, we are an accredited certification body. We are 17065, and currently the OBP program is not an accredited program, but certainly in the direction that it moves, we would obtain accreditation for it as well. And the third part, more standard specific questions. How would you classify, quote unquote, managed dump sites right next to an ocean? I visited one in Richards Bay, South Africa years ago, which sat on a cliff right above the ocean.
I think that would be the same thing as a distance question. So we would classify it by the visual evidence that plastic is actually flowing from it.
Okay, great. Yeah, there are some questions regarding, we will send
I'm sorry, and maybe a second part of the definition. Yeah. We have classified in the standards through actually the FAQ document what is a managed dump site, what is a properly managed landfill, and what is an informal dump site. So you have the categories, they are defined, the requirements for each category are defined there.
Great. Next couple questions are around the presentation itself. It will be made available, so we will send a copy of this PDF form. And I believe the presentation itself will be, video presentation will be available on the website. So you can all receive, can see the video, and of course we will send you a copy of the deck. One question came out regarding QR codes. Whether it's possible to put it on garments. The Control Union does have QR codes on certificates, so companies that are using scope certificates and or transaction certificates for those programs that require that, there is a QR code. So I think it is possible. It's a great question, and I think it's something we will have to investigate further, both OBP and Control Union, to see if that is a viable option. But it's a great question. So for you, Gabriela, for Control Union, how do you determine the required audit days? Do you have a transparent formula or guidelines that you use?
Yes, so the audit days are determined by the size of the organization and the operations that they have. So of course, if they have collection operations and recycling operations, the the amount of days will be a little bit greater. What we do consider is at least half day per standard for documentation review. So the minimum of audit days is 1 day, let's say. So half day for documentation review and at least half day for, facility tour or visit one collection site. But again, it depends on the size and how many operations the organization has.
I see here a question for Barak. Where is the collected plastic waste weighed and at what stage?
So it's weighed in two places. First, on the site when we organize and assorted everything before loading to the trucks. And the second weight will be in the cement factory before it's entered, and then we verify that the amount is the same. So we have basically two weights in this process.
Okay. And I see there is another question here. I might as well ask it for you, Barak. How is ton-to-ton regulated in other countries? How do you know the plastic is being collected in those countries? Do they have to provide proof of packaged plastics? Do you know the life cycle? So I guess, that I think maybe you want to give a little bit of an overview for that.
Yeah, so I think it's, first of all, for plastic neutralization, we don't collect the product that's been neutralized. Those are in other countries and we have no control over them. Right now we're only working in Vietnam. So what we are collecting is in Vietnam in the authorized locations. And this is the amount that we can control. The other, we have no control over.
Okay. There is a question as to public registry. Who is managing the public registry? Is that Control Union or ZPO? I think there are, maybe you want to address it, Vincent, from
Yeah,
ZPO.
for the moment, we have a very simple registry that's on the certification website, which is obpcert.org, where we are going to publish its neutralization certificate with all the information. It's a 1.5 page document where you can see what has been done with the plastic and all of that. And we are going to put who has executed the collection operation and neutralization, who has purchased that credit. So for the moment, we are going with that, and we are looking at when these markets develop further ways to make it more technological and complex. But for the moment, we try to stay low cost and simple because we want the money to go in removing plastic and not in creating very complex and sophisticated plastic credit markets.
Yeah. And from the Control Union side, as an accredited organization, our certificates are actually on a database. It is public, but it's across all of our programs. So going to the OBP website is more specific for that program. So, but there is the information. It is available in the public. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, for this question, I don't know. It's kind of hard to regarding pricing, understand the market pricing for OBP, PET, PP, or PE as compared to virgin. I don't know if Vincent or you.
Yeah, I can answer that. You cannot compare it to virgin. I mean, you can compare it to other recycled plastics, and there is going to be a premium for OBP. The premium is going to depend on which categories you are actually going from and the amount of social efforts that you put in your product, and the brand will value that. So what we see is that there is a premium, but it varies depending. Some people sell it 3x and some people selling 10% higher. So the range is very, very wide.
This question is for you, Barak. Beside OBP, is TONTOTON supplying GRS certified recycled plastic?
We are certified GRS, but not for this certificate, not for this program. So our GRS products are usually packaging. It's a different business basically. but it can be combined, so we can apply GRS and neutralize the same product if the client wish.
Okay, yeah. And then I think you addressed it a little bit in your presentation, Vincent, but it says, will phishing for litter be extended to the OBP program? To the OBP program in the future. So will phishing for litter be extended to OBP?
This is a subject that we've been discussing with some organization. There's two ways of fishing for plastic, like the intentional fishing and the collateral fishing, where fishermen go and pick up plastic from the ocean. And because there is an incentive to bring it back to the shore, do not actually throw it back with the fish that they don't want on the boat. So this is a discussion we would have to evaluate if it's financially coherent and ethically coherent to consider it as ocean-bound plastic, because it's a plastic that's going to be thrown back into the environment. This is a reflection that we will have, and probably at the next revision of a standard, we will have a public consultation phase where we will have probably that question asked to the stakeholder.
Great, great. This next question I think is also for you, Vincent. Will collection near lakes be a part of OBP? We have river, waterways, and shoreline, but what about lakes?
So what lakes could be considered in the waterways categories as long as the lake is actually going into the ocean. If it's a closed lake, we have the question quite often, we will not include it because a closed lake doesn't go to the ocean.
Yeah, okay. Good point. This one for you, Gabriela. I buy OBP plastic from a supplier who is OBP certified. I recycle it and convert it into a final product. Can I claim on my product as made from OBP, or do I need to be OBP certified to make this claim?
No, you need to be OBP certified to make this claim. As OBP is a chain of custody certification program, all steps of the chain must be certified to make a claim.
Okay, great.
There was a question, Robert, before of, is this program operating in Pakistan as well? Yes, we have companies that have applied in Pakistan and which are probably under audit.
Great. And the next question is, will you carry out other training related to product claim on user or manufacturer who is using certified OBP fully or partially? Maybe that either to you, Vincent, or to Gabriela. So I think what they're saying is, will there be additional trainings offered, webinars? I do think when companies are engaging with OBP, certainly, there can be assistance given by Zero Plastic Ocean in terms of engagement on understanding that. From the control unit side, obviously, we don't do the training because we are the auditing body. Yeah, maybe, I don't know if you have a little bit to add to that, Vincent.
Well, maybe it's a training that we could think of doing. We have a manual for how you can make your claims. So that's part of the certification document that you can find on the website, obpcert.org. And that is something that we can consider as well when the certification is more developed on how do you make your product claims, how do you make your promotional claims, what are the different type of claims that you make. So that is something that we could consider in the future, and maybe with Gabriela have a specific seminar on that part of the program.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Suppose we have been collecting abandoned plastic, but have, through awareness of people over a period of time, managed to have them store plastic in their homes and collect from them once a week. Will this be part of OBP?
That would be considered as a prevention of OBP. So that would be part of OBP as long as previously this plastic was abandoned in the street, or this is done in a mismanaged area. If it's done in the upper rich district of the city where everything is super clean, that is not going to be accepted. So we are going to look at where that program is taking place.
Great. Next question, it's interesting. Is OBP plastic safe to use, especially those that are used in food packaging?
Yes, OBP is not a technical specification, it is a location specification, so it's normal post-consumer plastic, some of it on the beach or in the river a bit more damaged, and depending on the cleaning process and the recycling process which are made and the sorting process which are applied, some of it can be compliant to food grade, European or FDA certified. It mostly depends on the process after, but not on the fact that it is OBP or not.
Okay, and I think that adds into the next question. Is there any guidelines on differences when dealing with food contact and non-food contact grade OBP? So I think
not for us, not from our point of view here.
Let's see. At Robert Dimnu and Vincent, you said you can buy credit certificates to offset even if not using recycled content. Do you ensure that the materials match? So, for example, if a company produces complex plastics like sachets or multi-layer that they buy matching plastic credits, is that even possible and considered in the standard?
So there is two standards. There is one for the collection and the emission of the OBP credits, and there is one for the company who want to make an OBP neutral claim. And the OBP neutral claim standard is going to look at how much plastic is being used in the production. So the company will have to justify to make this product line, I use this much amount of plastic, and will have to demonstrate that to the auditor on how much is being used by the company itself, how much is being used by its subcontractor, depending on the scope that the company actually chooses. A company could choose to be an OBP neutral company as a whole and do an extended plastic footprint, have an auditing company do that, a consulting company do that footprint for them, or they could say we are just going to make a special brand, OBP plastic neutral, and the scope is easier to determine, but they will have to justify and pass an audit by control union in that case to be able to make the claim.
Okay, great. I think this next question is for you, Gabriela. What type of record keeping must be done to maintain certification? For example, if an end user wants to claim OBP, aside from everyone being certified, is there a tracing for each lot of plastic that is processed and shipped?
So yes, not sure if I understand the full extent of the question.
Basically segregation.
Go ahead, Gabriela.
Oh yeah, I was about to say that the traceability is basically for segregation model. So, or it is 100% or it is not. Of course, there are some products that can apply for mass balance supply chain models. So the product itself will have a percentage of OBP material on it. But regarding tracing lots specifically, there is no written requirement for specific tracing lots yet on the standard.
So yeah, we'd expect the company to have its own traceability system, and that's going to be audited as a system by the auditors. We didn't want to include a transaction certificate, again, trying to focus most of the cost on collecting the OBP and not in the traceability. We know that many companies have either blockchain traceability system now, which are becoming very common, have other proof of transaction, and you have to store all that documentation. The audit cycle is 1 year, so you will be audited on the past year. And of course, if the auditor finds non-conformity, you will be at risk of being excluded from the program if you're not able to justify the traceability of each transaction of OBP that you have made.
There is a question regarding control union and our role in the certification. So if we are exclusive or what the plan is, maybe you want to give a couple of comments on that, Vincent?
Yes, so control union is not exclusive. but as I mentioned in the beginning, they have been a partner, so currently it's kind of logical that they are the only one offering the service. Our priority is to make the standard robust, to develop it, to develop like some technology addition to it, to make it a good ecosystem and a good environment. So we are not eagerly looking for additional certification body until the program is stabilized. For the moment, we believe that Control Union, which is an international company present in more than 75 countries, is able to cover the needs of our clients. However, if some certification body want to get in contact with us, they can get in contact with us and we will evaluate how we could include them in the program, maybe at a later stage. But it's not a priority and we don't think it's a necessity right now until the program becomes more robust, actually.
The next question, I think, is a good question for you, Vincent. On what basis are the OBP neutrality certificates priced? And by whom? So
it's a free market. We don't intervene in the trade. So between the producer and the buyer, you have to make an agreement on price. We see that the market price for these certificates seems to be around $500, $600 a ton at the moment, but that seems to be the current market price. It might have an evolution to get lower, but for the moment we're not fixing it. And it's very difficult to fix because the projects are very different. The projects have different social and environmental impact. If you are going to work on a stricter category and you are working specifically in a mangrove, for example, or with very unfavored population and give them a lot of social benefit, then your plastic is going to be more expensive. So it would be unfair to set a market price that would potentially lower the benefits for the environment and for population. So we believe it's a free market and everybody that likes the projects that they want to work with can choose to work with them and use the certification as the guarantee that these projects are operating at least according to a published standard that everybody can verify it.
Great. That's good. Next question is, I found that there are many other parties who are certifying recycling companies. Example, APR, Association of Plastic Recyclers, EU Cert Plus, etc. Are they similar with GRS? I'm not familiar with those programs. I mean, certainly from, and you can jump in as well, Vincent or Gabriela, but typically, you know, I guess it's going to depend on what your particular market is looking at. If you're looking at sort of a larger stakeholder organizations or sort of the process in which companies are going through a certification. You know, in the case of GRS, you know, it is a larger multi-stakeholder program that has had a lot of traction in the marketplace, and then certainly for programs like OBP, which have a lot of integrity in the program, you would have to, I think, look at your particular market. But I would say, you know, OBP or GRS would be probably the, in my opinion, certainly the programs with the greatest amount of integrity. Vincent, maybe you're familiar with those programs? I'm not.
Not in the detail sufficient to answer that question.
Fair enough. There was a clarification regarding matching. The term matching was misunderstood. What they meant by matching in terms of plastic type, so not in terms of weight. For example, a company producing 1 ton of multi-layer, if it cannot purchase 1 ton of PET to claim neutrality. Is that true?
Okay, so sorry, Ina, to misunderstood your question. No, we are not plastic type specific. So especially because the non-recyclable ocean-bound plastic is the one that nobody will sort. That's the one that has no specific value as recycled. So there is no reason why you are going to sort that plastic after you've collected it, except to eventually take the recyclable out, and the recyclables are typically going to be your ton of PET, which is going to go out of the mix. So for us, it is whatever plastic you use on one side, and you put in the market globally as plastic, you remove specifically as non-recyclable OBP on the other side to have the environmental benefit, like I explained on the picture, where we try to remove everything. If we would go by type, that might be a shot in the feet, because definitely there is some types of plastic that we would not find in the non-recyclable ocean-bound plastic.
Yeah, good point. This next question I think is for you, Gabriela. If I am already ISCC mass balance certified and use the OBP certified raw material, do I still need to be OBP certified?
Yes, you still need to be OBP certified. Again, it's a chain of custody certification process, so any step of the supply chain needs to be certified. If you compare ICC with OBP, I know ICC audits can take very long, a week of auditing. OBP, it's much shorter, so it shouldn't be any longer process. It should be very small process for you to get OBP certified as well.
And the next question I think is for you as well. How long is the lead time to be certified to OBP?
So as I mentioned during the presentation, we estimate at up to 8 weeks to be certified from the application to the emission of scope certificate. Of course, this time frame can vary according to auditor schedule, if there was any non-conformity raised during the audit, if the payment condition, that was agreed beforehand, it's already in place. There is some topics that can influence the time frame, but usually if everything goes smoothly, up to 8 weeks, you get the OBP certificate.
Okay. And then we're coming to the end of our time here. I see here, yeah, the question is, but IACC is also chain of custody. It is not clear why one needs to do 2 certifications. Maybe I can just mention that a lot of programs, they will go through a mutual recognition process or a process where they begin to recognize each other's standards. A lot of different programs in different stages have looked at that. So at this time, IACC, OBP are not mutually recognized. That's correct, Vincent. But I think with a lot of programs, the challenge is that not always the criteria is the same. So when you're talking about the audit process, there are particular elements that would be audited in one that are not audited on the other.
We have not talked with ISCC yet. However, I've heard that they were looking at our standard in the intent to benchmark it, but it's just something I've heard. So I don't know exactly, but we have started to benchmark with other standards to make the certification easier. It's a long process, but this is something that we are working on.
Okay, great. Well, I think we have the questions. I think most of these. So how early stage can you intervene and help a business get its setup done? I'm not sure I understand exactly the question. Maybe it is referencing in terms of, can an organization reach out to either Zero Plastic Ocean or with Control Union to try to understand if this program is possible, if it has the, let's say, correct, we call it scope, or if it is finally an option for them. From our side, certainly the earlier the better. When a company is looking at a new program and they're seeking to obtain certification, But I think, Vincent, what you said in the presentation is that, you could be midstream and maybe you do not have a raw material supplier. So it does take some time, unless you go through the neutralization program, but it does take some time to be able to process and get access to those particular suppliers.
Yeah, I would encourage people who ask the question to get in touch with us. We can certainly help organizations by putting them in contact with potential buyer or people interested in the products that they are going to make, or on the contrary, potential suppliers. So this is not a official role of a standard setter, but for the moment we are connecting people who want to help with the problematic that we have here. So please do get in contact with us, explain the project, and we'll definitely try to help.
So we've come to the end of our presentation. So I want to thank the speakers for their presentations and want to thank all the participants for joining us, spending this hour and a half with us, and for the questions. As I mentioned, we will share the deck and the recording will be available on the website. With that, I appreciate it. I wish you well, and thank you very much.
Thank you to all for your participation and lively discussion. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. A good evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.